So, good morning. Welcome to what I think might be the final part of Nikolai Gogol's The Nose. As you can see by the background, I'm still experimenting with interesting places to shoot these videos, just because you have such a limited time in Colorado to be outside. Also, it's Sunday morning, and I thought, well, if there's ever a time I can go outside and shoot something without traffic going by, it's now. But I'm wrong, because traffic is still going by. Let's give it a shot though. When we left the reading, Gogol was trying to put the nose back on his face, but there's no way for it to stick. He doesn't have super glue back then. And to reiterate the last paragraph that I read, but the nose seemed to be made of wood and fell back on the table with a strange noise, as though it had been a cork. The Major's face began to twitch feverishly. Is it possible that it won't stick? He asked himself, full of alarm. But however often he tried, all his efforts were in vain. He called Ivan and sent him to fetch the doctor, who occupied the finest flat in the mansion. This doctor was a man of imposing appearance, who had magnificent black whiskers and a healthy wife. He ate fresh apples every morning and cleaned his teeth with extreme care, using 5 different toothbrushes for 3/4 of an hour daily. That seems a little extreme, but I will say I had to brush my teeth before I started this video, because even though you can't tell, somehow I pictured my bad breath coming through the speaker. Well, we can't have that. The doctor came immediately. After having asked the Major when this misfortune had happened, he raised his chin and gave him a fillip with his finger just where the nose had been, in such a way that the Major suddenly threw back his head and struck the wall with it. The doctor said that did not matter. Then, making him turn his face to the right, he felt the vacant place and said, Then he made him turn it to the left and did the same. Finally, he again gave him a fillip with his finger, so that the Major started like a horse whose teeth are being examined. After this experiment, the doctor shook his head and said, No, it cannot be done. Rather remain as you are, lest something worse happen. Certainly one could replace it at once, but I assure you the remedy would be worse than the disease. All very fine, but how am I to go on without a nose? Answered Gogol. There's nothing worse than that. How can I show myself with such a villainous appearance? I go into good society, and this evening I invited to 2 parties. This man is extremely superficial. I know several ladies, Madame Chicharev, the wife of a state councilor, Madame Pochikina, although after what she has done, I don't want to have anything to do with her except through the agency of the police. I beg you, continued Gogol in a supplicating tone, find some way or other of replacing it, even if it is not quite firm. As long as it holds at all, I can keep it in place sometimes with my hand, whenever there is any risk. Besides, I do not even dance, so it is not likely to be injured by any sudden movement. As to your fee, be in no anxiety about that. I can well afford it. Believe me, answered the doctor in a voice which was neither too high nor too low, but soft and almost magnetic. I do not treat patients from love of gain. That would be contrary to my principles and to my art. It is true that I accept fees, but that is only not to hurt my patients' feelings by refusing them. I could certainly replace your nose, but I assure you, on my word of honor, it would only make matters worse. Rather let nature do her own work. Wash the place often with cold water, and I assure you, even without a nose, you will be just as well as if you had one. As to the nose itself, I advise you to have it preserved in a bottle of spirits, or still better, of warm vinegar, mixed with 2 spoonfuls of brandy, and then you can sell it at a good price. I'd be willing to take it myself, provided you do not ask too much. No, I shall not sell it at any price. I would rather it were lost again. This is why I don't go outside. Bugs. And I have visitors. I don't know if they're in camera, but I have cats. Excuse me, said the doctor, taking his leave. I hope to be useful to you, but I can do nothing more. You are at any rate convinced of my goodwill. So saying, the doctor left the room with a dignified air. Gogol did not even notice his departure. Absorbed in a profound reverie, he only saw the edge of his snow-white cuffs emerging from the sleeves of his black coat. The next day he resolved, before bringing formal action, to write to the colonel's wife and see whether she would not return to him, without further dispute, that of which she had deprived him. The letter ran as follows: to Madame Alexandra Potchina. Now remember, Kovalov thinks that this lady somehow cut off his nose because he was slow to agree to marry her daughter. He has no proof of this, but that doesn't matter. So he writes her this letter. I hardly understand your method of action. Be sure that by adopting such a course you will gain nothing, and you will certainly not succeed in making me marry your daughter. Believe me, the story of my nose has become well known. It is you and no one else who have taken the principal part in it. Its unexpected separation from the place which it occupied, its flight and its appearances sometimes in the disguise of an official, sometimes in proper person, are nothing but the consequence of unholy spells employed by you or by persons who, like you, are addicted to such honorable pursuits. On my part, I wish to inform you that if the above-mentioned nose is not restored today in its proper place, I shall be obliged to have recourse to legal procedure. For the rest, with all respect, I have the honor to be your humble servant. The reply was not long in coming, and was as follows. Major Platon Kovalov, your letter has profoundly astonished me. I must confess that I had not expected such unjust reproaches on your part. I assure you that the official of whom you speak has not been at my house, either disguised or in his proper person. It is true that Philip Ivanovich Potanchkov has paid visits at my house, and though he has actually asked for my daughter's hand, and was a man of good breeding, respectable and intelligent, I never gave him any hope. Again, you say something about a nose. If you intend to imply by that I wish to snub you, i.e. to meet you with a refusal, I am very astonished. As you well know, I was quite of the opposite mind. If, after this, you wish to ask for my daughter's hand, I should be glad to gratify you, for such has also been the object of my most fervent desire, in the hope of the accomplishment of which I remain yours most sincerely, Alexandra Potchina. No, said Kovalov, having perused the letter. She is certainly not guilty. I had to sneeze. And watch the cats chase each other around the yard. I haven't seen that. Also get a fly off my ear. That's quite irritating. It is impossible. Such a letter could not be written by a criminal. The committee man was experienced in such matters, for he had been officially deputed to conduct criminal investigations while in the Caucasus. But then how and by what trick of fate has this thing happened? He said to himself with a gesture of discouragement. The devil must be at the bottom of it. Meanwhile, the rumor of this extraordinary event had spread all over the city, and as is generally the case, not without numerous additions. At that period, there was general disposition to believe in the miraculous. The public had recently been impressed by experiments in magnetism. Remember, this is 1835. The story of the floating chairs in Koinichinia Street was still quite recent, and there was nothing astonishing in hearing soon afterwards that Major Kovalov's nose was to be seen walking every day at 3 o'clock on the Nevsky Avenue. The crowd of curious spectators which gathered there daily was enormous. On one occasion, someone spread a report that the nose was in junker stores, and immediately the place was besieged by such a crowd that the police had to interfere and establish order. A certain speculator with a grave, bewhiskered face, who sold cakes at a theater door, had some strong wooden benches made which he placed before the window of the stores, and obligingly invited the public to stand on them and look in, at the modest charge of 24 kopecks. A veteran colonel, leaving his house earlier than usual expressly for the purpose, had the greatest difficulty in elbowing his way through the crowd, but to his great indignation he saw nothing in the store window but an ordinary flannel waistcoat and a colored lithograph representing a young girl darning a stocking, while an elegant youth in a waistcoat with large lapels watched her from behind a tree. The picture had hung in the same place for more than 10 years. The colonel went off, growling savagely to himself. How can the fools let themselves be excited by such idiotic stories? Then another rumor got abroad, to the effect that the nose of Major Kovalov was in the habit of walking not on the Nevsky Avenue, but in the tourist gardens. Some students at the Academy of Surgery went there on purpose to see it. A high-born lady wrote to the keeper of the gardens asking him to show her children this rare phenomenon and to give them some suitable instruction on the occasion. All these incidents were eagerly collected by the town wits, who just then were very short of anecdotes adapted to amuse ladies. On the other hand, isn't that time hasn't changed? We're always trying to make women laugh, even now. On the other hand, the minority of solid, sober people were very much displeased. One gentleman asserted with great indignation that he could not understand how in our enlightened age such absurdities could spread abroad, and he was astonished that the government did not direct their attention to the matter. This gentleman evidently belonged to the category of those people who wished the government to interfere in everything, even in the daily quarrels with their wives. But here the course of events is obscured again by a veil. And now we reach part 3, the official part 3. Strange events happen in this world, events of which are sometimes entirely improbable. The same nose which had masqueraded as a state councilor and caused so much sensation in the town was found one morning in its proper place, i.e. between the cheeks of Major Kovalov, as if nothing had happened. This occurred on 7th April. On awaking, the major looked by chance into a mirror and perceived a nose. He quickly put his hand to it. It was there, beyond a doubt. "Oh!" exclaimed Kovalov. For sheer joy, he was on the point of performing a dance barefooted across the room, but the entrance of Ivan, remember his lackey, prevented him. He told him to bring water, and after washing himself, he looked again in the glass. The nose was there. Then he dried his face with a towel and looked again. Yes, there was no mistake about it. "Look here, Ivan. It seems to me that I have a heat boil on my nose," he said to his valet. And he thought to himself at the same time, "That will be a nice business if Ivan says to me, 'No, sir, not only is there no boil, but your nose itself is not there.'" But Ivan answered, "There is nothing, sir. I can see no boil on your nose." "Good, good," exclaimed the major, and snapped his fingers with delight. At this moment the barber, Ivan Yakovlevich, put his head in at the door, but as timidly as a cat which has just been beaten for stealing lard. "Tell me first, are your hands clean?" asked Kovalov when he saw him. "Yes, sir." "You lie." "I swear they're perfectly clean, sir." "Very well, then come here." Kovalov seated himself. Yakovlevich tied a napkin under his chin, and in the twinkling of an eye covered his beard and part of his cheeks with a copious, creamy lather. "There it is," said the barber to himself as he glanced at the nose. Then he bent his head a little and examined it from one side. "Yes, it actually is the nose. Really, when one thinks," he continued, pursuing his mental soliloquy and still looking at it. Then, quite gently, with infinite precaution, he raised 2 fingers in the air in order to take hold of it by the extremity, as he was accustomed to do. "Now then, take care," Kovalov exclaimed. Ivan Yakovlevich let his arm fall and felt more embarrassed than he had ever done in his life. At last he began to pass the razor very lightly over the major's chin, and although it was very difficult to shave him without using the olfactory organ as a point of support, he succeeded, however, by placing his wrinkled thumb against the major's lower jaw and cheek, thus overcoming all obstacles and bringing his task to a safe conclusion. When the barber had finished, Kovalov hastened to dress himself, took a droshky, and drove straight to the confectioner's. As he entered it, he ordered a cup of chocolate. He then stepped straight to the mirror. The nose was there. He returned joyfully, and regarded with a satirical expression 2 officers who were in the shop, one of whom possessed a nose not much larger than a waistcoat button. After that he went to the office of the department where he'd applied for the post of vice governor of a province or government bailiff. As he passed through the hall of reception, he cast a glance in the mirror. The nose was there. Then he went to pay a visit to another committee man, a very sarcastic personage, to whom he was accustomed to say in answer to his raillery, "Yes, I know. You are the funniest fellow in St. Petersburg." On the way he said to himself, "If the major does not burst into laughter at the sight of me, That is the most certain sign that everything in its accustomed place. But the major said nothing. Very good, thought Gogol. As he returned, he met Madame Pochino with her daughter. He accosted them, and they responded very graciously. The conversation lasted a long time, during which he took more than one pinch of snuff, saying to himself, "No, you haven't got me yet, coquettes that you are. And as to the daughter, I shan't marry her at all." Well, he's a swine. After that, the major resumed his walks on the Nevsky Avenue and his visits to the theater as if nothing had happened. His nose also remained in its place as if he had never quitted it. From that time, he was always seen to be smiling, as in good humor, and paying attention to pretty girls. Such was the occurrence, we're now at part 4, which took place in the northern capital of our vast empire. On considering the account carefully, we see there is a good deal which looks improbable about it, not to speak of the strange disappearance of the nose, and its appearance in different places under the disguise of a counselor of state. How was it that Gogol did not understand that one cannot decently advertise for a lost nose? I do not mean to say that he had to pay too much for the advertisement. That is a mere trifle. And I'm not one of those who attach too much importance to money. But to advertise in such a case is not proper or befitting. Another difficulty is, how was the nose found in the baked loaf? And how did Ivan Yakovlevich himself know? I don't understand it at all. But the most incomprehensible thing of all is how authors can choose such subjects for their stories. That really surpasses my understanding. In the first place, no advantage results from it for the country. And in the second place, no harm results either. All the same, when one reflects well, there really is something in the matter. Whatever may be said to the contrary, such cases do occur. Rarely, it is true, but now and then actually. So I love the part where Gogol sort of makes fun of himself for writing this story. I certainly understand that impulse, especially when I read some stuff I wrote years ago. Speaking of which, again, I will do a couple things with this channel. One is I'm going to continue reading older stories that I really enjoy, that I think, others might enjoy hearing. You can always turn off the visuals. Just close your eyes, listen to the audio if you enjoy my reading. Second, I'll continue reading some of my new works. And 3, remember, the channel is officially Ralph Reviews It. So I'm going to start doing a series of reviews of various things, that whichever catches my fancy. Next is going to be a review in terms of websites or YouTube channels, Leak Project, which is both a website and a YouTube channel. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the conclusion of Gogol's The Nose, and I look forward to reading to you not too much longer from now.